Hello and welcome to everyone that has joined us for our webinar this afternoon on the state of cybersecurity in the UK charity sector. My name is Liz from Charity Digital, and it's going to be a little bit different today as we're going to go over some really cool and interesting findings of the survey that we did over the summer in collaboration with the National Centre for Cybersecurity about the UK charity sector's attitudes and feelings towards cybersecurity, and also identifying areas where it could be improved by discussing what's available and the resources in our reach. The findings of this survey has certainly given us some insights to delve into, but today we're not going to be diving into the nitty-gritty, but it's more like an overview which has revealed lots of interesting stuff. And as we know that the charity sector was already at risk from cyber threats due to vast amount of data that they do have and limited resources to protect it. But I just want to say for an introduction to our discussions that this survey did reveal that more than 4 in 5 charities in the UK say that they have changed their attitude to cybersecurity since the pandemic. Our guest speakers today will be giving us their expert opinion. And I'm very pleased to say that we have Becca Kay, who is the lead of Charity Sector Resilience in the National Centre for Cybersecurity, and Charity Digital's very own cybersecurity specialist, Stuart Barber. So before I hand over to these guests, I'm just going to mention some very quick house rules. We will have time at the end for Q&A, and you'll be able to vote for the question with a thumbs up. But please do feel free to ask any questions that are relevant to the topic that is being discussed during the session. And I will very politely, and without trying to butt in too much into the conversation, raise your questions so that they don't get lost along the way. And I do also encourage you all to share your experiences with us in the chat and get these conversations flowing. We do really learn a lot from each other. So maybe you just want to start to do that and tell us where you're joining us from at the moment. We also do have closed captions available for this webinar, so you can turn these on by clicking on the CC closed caption button. And we are recording this session, and the recording, together with the slides, any other links will be emailed to you and will also be available on our website in about a week's time. Now, we did have a few hiccups just before coming on live. So my lovely colleague Sasha is in the back end and would jump in and help with any IT problems or with any Wi-Fi issues that we do have. And also she'll be communicating with you in the chat as and when is necessary. Becca and Stu, thank you so much for coming on board. Thank you for being our guest speakers today. I'm really looking forward to this session, to this chat. So I'm just going to let you just get on with it. Without further ado, Stu, I'm going to hand over to you. You can start the presentation.
Hi, Liz. Thank you very much and welcome, everyone. And as Liz said, I'm Stuart and I work here at Charity Digital as part of the customer service team, and I have a hand in all the cybersecurity products that we currently work with. So the first thing that I'd like to bring up is how does the sector feel about cybersecurity? So really positive stat here, with 95% of people who took part in our survey stating that the cybersecurity is super important to their organization. It was cited as the 3rd highest business priority within a charity after service delivery and fundraising. 68% of people said they're already good when it comes to cybersecurity and no changes were needed. However, I think this is something that as a sector that we need to look into with maintenance, responsibility and development. Now, from this, I think is a very good point is that should we take this positive change, make us more or less optimistic?
Hi, Stuart. Hi, Stuart. I was just wondering whether everyone knew who I was here as well. So I'm Becca. I'm going to be joining Stuart.
So sorry there, Becca. I forgot to hand over to yourself. Sorry, my fault.
Yeah, sorry. So what was the first question here for the
Should the positive attitude change towards cybersecurity make us more or less optimistic as a sector?
Yes. Okay. So yeah, we've seen that change in attitudes across the sector, which we wonder, is this a result of there being more cyber attacks, or is this a really good thing that people are noticing and caring about it a lot more? And I think it's really great that we're starting to see a lot more charities that are thinking about it. I'm certainly noticing in the NCSC that I'm getting a lot more questions coming in from charities. I'm getting a lot more traction as well, and so I think it's I think it's a really good thing that we're seeing a lot more charities that are thinking about cybersecurity. Obviously, on the other side of the coin, we don't want to be a victim of a cyber attack. So hopefully, as this awareness develops, we'll start to see some action happening in the charities. And I think that is when that's going to be that positive turn, and it will be much more difficult for cyber criminals to actually target charities if they are looking at what they're doing and trying to make it as difficult as possible for cyber criminals to get into their systems and affect them.
I couldn't agree with you more there, Becca.
Yeah.
Working with a customer service inbox, obviously, for one thing, I look after an email address that is out there to the public. And I've noticed a massive increase in the amount of phishing emails that we actually receive on a day-to-day basis. So I think it is a very good point that people are taking this seriously, as cyber attacks do seem to be on the increase day to day.
Yeah.
And would you think that this increased awareness from peers has come from an increased sense of responsibility over cybersecurity since we've all been working from home, or that because things like cyber attacks are more often in the news and things like that, the overall sort of awareness of what happens has been pushed to the forefront?
Yeah, I think that overall, not just in the charity sector, we're seeing that we're hearing a lot more about cyber attacks, and I think part of that is a result of these victims. I don't really like the word victims, but these organisations that have been affected by a cyber attack actually putting their hand up and sharing their messages and sharing what's happened. I think that this is a really key driver in increasing awareness and inciting action. And I think that's the more, if you have found that you're a victim of a cyber attack, to share, whether that's just within the network of charities that you're with, or whether that's more widely by just coming and reaching out to you guys at Charity Digital and offering to talk about it to other charities. I think it's that side of it, that people are feeling more comfortable to talk about the experiences that they've had. And also, what I want to say about that as well is that the organisations that do stand up and speak out, and I think we have Jerry here, who's introduced himself, and he's been talking with us to the Charity Fraud Awareness Week about his experiences as well. You only get a positive response. You'll find that your donors, your beneficiaries, they'll really appreciate your honesty. And also, if you're sharing your actions, you're proving that you're being proactive, you're making a change based on your experiences. that can only be a really good thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, but so I went around the houses a little bit, but I do think that awareness is building. But I think a lot the acceleration only comes when people share their stories.
Oh yeah, couldn't agree more. We're not immune to that here at Charity Digital. We had our own issue a little while ago, and for everyone that's interested, the full story is available in a different webinar. We shared our story out there so we can help other people avoid the pitfalls and traps that we may have fallen into, because at the end of the day, nobody gets it perfect. If we all got it perfect, then the cyber criminals wouldn't be out there targeting us at the end of the day. So if we move on a little bit, we now have 4 out of 5 people from our survey saying that their behaviours towards cybersecurity has changed. 43% have said that they've gained more awareness from their peers. 40% noticed an increase of breaches in the sector. 25% have suffered their own breach, which is really interesting. I do wonder with that type of statistic if they're the ones that have shared stories or have kept it a little bit more quiet and internal to their organisation. And then moving on, 30% have said they've engaged more with cybersecurity content. And really, I hope a lot of that was with us here, because we like to keep the sector informed.
Yeah, they're interesting stats, actually. I think that reflects as well that 40% noticing changes in the sector, the 43% by talking to peers. That's that sharing of information with others. That just shows that that's a critical point.
Now, I think sort of following on from that, this is really interesting, is that actually 60%, 6 out of 10 people don't think we're quite there yet with our cybersecurity measures. Sort of then looking back, saying with 95% saying it's really important, it's interesting to see that we don't feel that we're there yet. Some of the go back again. Some of those reasons stated were for that they didn't have official qualifications or credentials. They've not been trained how to use their own cybersecurity software, and they've not undertaken training to improve their skills. So when looking at that, some of the reasons behind those statistics is lack of time and resource. And we'll all know, being charity workers, we're all pressed for time all the time. But I think it is something very important that we take our time out and spend a little bit of time on. 40% of people are not aware of training available, and we will talk a little bit more about some resources where you can get some free online guidance for that. 23% said they haven't been able to find suitable training, and then 10% saying a lack of opportunity provided from their leaders. So we've got a few things here on this slide. This is some training and some resources, and once the webinar is over, we'll be sending these slides out, so you'll be able to have a better look at those. Becca, I was wondering if you could give just a brief sort of explanation on what these tools are and how they can be used by organisations.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the key message here is that you don't have to be a cybersecurity expert, and you don't have to have technical knowledge to improve your security and your awareness as well. I think as long as you think about how might a cyber attack impact your organisation, that's that first step, is understanding what might happen in your organisation. If that happens, I think that will give you that drive to then start looking at things like training. So on here we have where it says NCSC cybersecurity training for staff now available. that's a link to our e-learning top tips for staff. And this is a fantastic e-learning you can share with everyone in your organisation, and it'll give them just key learnings on so that they understand what a phishing email might look like, how to spot the signs of a dodgy email, and it also takes you through those basic steps like strong passwords, etc. So that will give everyone in your organisation a little bit of knowledge and understanding. And I think that's something that's really important, is that everyone in your organisation is on board. So if you're an organisation, you only need to make need to have one little tiny crack for the criminal to be able to get into you, whereas the criminal only needs to find one tiny little thing. So it's much easier for them to find that one place, that one spot that's easier to find. So if you have, say, a member of staff who's using their dog's name as their password for everything, that's going to make it a whole lot easier for them to get into your system. However, if everyone understands how important it is to have strong passwords, and also if everyone understands how to spot a dodgy email, it will cover your organisation a whole lot better. And then we also have the other one that says new top tips for staff, charities and small businesses. They gave it a really weird headline. I don't know why our website says that, but that's an e-learning for smaller organisations. So if you're a micro charity, a very small charity, that can give you as much learning as you need, as much guidance as you'll need to just increase your security that little bit more. And this links into the small charity guide. So that is a more in-depth version of the e-learning. So once you've done the e-learning, if you want to learn a little bit more about one of the topics, you can link into the small charity guide. So I think my key messages here are: you don't need to be a techie. You need to make sure that everyone is on board. And you also need to really have a think about how it would impact your charity if you were a victim of a cyber attack.
Can I pop in?
Yeah.
Hello, Becky. Yeah. No, thanks so much for all of this. This is great, Becca. Thank you. We just got a question here that sort of relates to what you're talking to here when you're talking about what's available and everything. And yeah. Bobby actually said a few minutes ago, what actions can we take to protect ourselves? So you are, sort of telling us what is available and everything. But are there other sort of steps that we can bring in and cover this question now?
Yes, certainly. So there are other things that you can do. We've also got a certification scheme called Cyber Essentials, and as well as getting a certification that proves that your charity is doing the best it can to protect its data and to protect the individuals, the beneficiaries. It also gives you a really clear guide as to the actions that you can take and what you need to do to really increase your security. There are quite a few actions to do in Cyber Essentials. So they have also a Cyber Essentials readiness tool. And so from that, even if you can just tick a couple of the boxes of getting towards Cyber Essentials, you could perhaps use that as a journey towards your perhaps an ultimate goal of being fully cyber resilient.
Okay, that's really good. That's great. And we've got a question from Ian as well. I'm just going to go back to the password, what you're talking about, obviously not a pet's name, which is a classic, isn't it? I think we've all done it in the past. But Ian sort of says, what are your thoughts regarding the future of passwords? Do you think we're all destined to go passwordless?
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? Potentially, there are. So even with our strong password guidance, it's not perfect. It's not completely infallible. And as technology progresses, as AI progresses, it's going to be much easier for criminals to brute force their way through password gateways and getting into your network. So potentially there could be like the fingerprints, other ways of verifying your ID. They're already out there, aren't they? And they're starting, they're starting to be used. So who knows? Watch this space.
Yeah, and that just rolls in with what John and Andrea are saying actually in the chat. And they're saying there'll always be cracks, and obviously, and we'll never be ahead of the criminals.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's a good point. That is a good point. And Jerry has said in the chat as well that they went through the Cyber Essentials and Cyber Essential Plus certification last year, and it gave them a nice comfort blanket. So that's really good. Thanks for sharing that. I'm going to pop off for the moment and let you carry on.
Cheers. Thanks, Liz.
So let's move on. So we're now going to have a look at our next section, which is support from leaders. So this would be people, senior management, board members, and other people responsible for decision making within an organization. Now, these statistics here are a little bit surprising. So only a third of people felt that the leadership within their organization was skilled or proficient. Only one in five felt that one in five felt that leadership didn't necessarily value cybersecurity as much as it should be. And then 25% said that there was no plan when it comes to a breach. So again, sort of race through those statistics a little bit there, but I can see that we've also had some questions about getting the board and leadership on board, and we've got a few more resources here supplied by the National Cyber Security Centre. Becca, if you'd like to tell us a little bit more about these.
Yes, absolutely. So something that we feel very strongly about in the NCSC is the importance of leadership, not only being aware of cybersecurity, but feeling empowered that they can ask the right questions about cybersecurity. I think traditionally we look at it as being an IT solution, like an IT problem. But then any victim of a cyber attack will probably testify that it isn't just an IT department's problem. So, for example, if you're a victim of a ransomware attack, they would go in and they would encrypt as much as they could find. It could be sensitive data. They might even take some sensitive data as well. They might delete your backups. They will make sure that you're disrupted as much as possible. So your board will really, really care about it if that did happen to them. And they are in a position where they have a really good overall understanding of your charity. So they can ask the finance department questions, they can ask the operations questions, they can ask IT the right questions. And so on that bottom left, we have the cybersecurity guidance for boards. It's quite epic. It's got lots and lots of guidance on there. But if you have a specific question that you need to be, that you want your board to be thinking about, that can help you to just find the right way to approach them. We also have lots of guidance on there on, how can you start discussions about ransomware in your board. And that sort of thing. So that's a really great toolkit to help your boards to start thinking more about cybersecurity and to empower them so that they know what questions to be asking. I've also got the small business guide in there. So the response and recovery plan for small business guides. So if you're really worried about what would we do if we were a victim of a cyber attack? So this is a guide for people for organisations that don't have an IT department, who will just come in and know what to do, and off we go. So that's a great guide to get you started there. I can't remember what the link is, the new tool launched to support organisations. that might be the Cyber Essentials readiness tool, I think, to help support you to get prepared for Cyber Essentials.
That's great, Becca. I'm going to butt in again. We were just tagging on to the end of all of this. We've got a couple of questions on the leadership. Can I go ahead with that? Yeah.
Yeah.
We've got David who's saying, what should we expect from our boards in terms of leading organisational cyber resilience, both in and out of the boardroom?
That's interesting. So what you should be expecting, you should expect that they have an understanding of what the impact might be if there is an incident. But more importantly, they need to be on the ball and knowing what are we doing to improve our resilience as well. So you've got that. How do we prepare? How do we make ourselves more resilient? What would we do in the case of a cyber attack? And we've got to make sure so it's not a fire and forget. Once we've got this plan in place, that's it. They don't care anymore. You need to have your board constantly asking the question: is there anything else that we need to be thinking about? Have we been checking to make sure that, for example, do we have some tools that we have available through the NCSC, like early warning, web check and mail check? Have we got our details correct still in there? Is our software up to date? They need to be asking questions regularly to make sure that the plan reflects the organisation currently and also reflects the latest guidance that's available out there as well.
Okay, yeah, that's brilliant. And there's another one here. How can you get leadership teams to get on board with getting better cybersecurity software? I guess you sort of covered that, but
yeah, I think, well, if you really want them to sit up and listen before you talk to them, have a think about how a cyber attack would affect your organisation, what the things that they would care about the most, what are your crown jewels, and then have a discussion with them about what would happen to their crown jewels if a cyber attack were to happen, and ask them, do you know what you would do if that happens? And I think if they can't answer that question, they probably should be feeling a little bit worried.
A little bit worried. And also Andre has mentioned in the chat that any board that doesn't have a cyber on their risk register should be challenged.
Yes.
Indeed. And it is on a lot of board meetings agendas. So I'm really pleased about that. Okay, Stu, over to you.
Yeah, I sort of had sort of another question sort of within this area is, what kind of difference does it make when an organisation does have do have leaders that are clued up on cybersecurity and take it seriously? Do you have any sort of insight to organisations that are slightly better and how much better they fare?
I suppose I can only really reflect on direct experiences. I sometimes do. So as my role in the NCSC, if there's a serious incident that happens in the charity sector, that's when I get called in to help to sort of manage between our incident management team and the charity. When they have a clear understanding of what they do as an organisation to make themselves resilient. So what have they got in place, what that looks like, and also if they have a response and recovery plan. It makes our job a lot easier when we're helping them to recover. So the impact can be quite dramatic for any organisation that's affected by a cyber attack. But if you haven't planned, if your board hasn't been involved so that you don't have a real clear action plan, it can impact. One, it could mean that the attack lasts longer than it needs to, and it could take an awful lot longer to recover. And also, if they haven't been looking at that cyber action plan, there may be things that have been missed out. So quite often we see that backups have been deleted because there hasn't been a process, not a process, but a plan to make sure that people use different passwords to access the cloud backup than they use on the system, that sort of thing. So in a nutshell, it could make you less resilient. And also, if you are a victim of a cyber attack, it could mean that it impacts your organisation a whole lot more if the board aren't aware and in line and have plans in place.
Excellent, thank you. I think as well, I did have something else, but we've covered that about becoming sort of our own cybersecurity leaders within our organisation. I think with the resources that we've shared there, with the training and the information, I think it's always important to continue learning. I know since I've been here at Charity Digital and taking care of the products, the cybersecurity products that we're able to supply to organizations, things have changed a lot. The importance of what people are looking at has changed over that period of time. So yeah, digest everything that you can, really. And if in doubt, ask, have open conversations with colleagues. So let's move on to a few more statistics. So now we're going to have a look at some of the cybersecurity software that is out there, or our attitudes towards software. So what we can see here is over the period of time, 68% of organizations implemented some form of cybersecurity software. 20% haven't implemented any cybersecurity software. And 12% are not aware of their organization's implemented cybersecurity software. Now, I find those really interesting. I know I have a special interest within Charity Digital, but I would have thought it's that lack of awareness of what you have available to help protect your endpoint as an end user is quite important. For example, if you're getting pop-ups, they can quite easily be spoofed to be claimed to be your antivirus software. You need to be informed of what you've got and what's available, how it works. So this shows that we're great with antivirus software, but what other tech is out there? Now, this comes back into a little bit more about the cybersecurity essentials, because just having antivirus would not be enough. So it shows that 82% of staff were familiar with antivirus software. 74% have said that it's the most commonly used software. And again, we're back to that group of people that don't know if their organization uses any software or what software they use if they've got any. So moving on to having a look at what's available to the charity sector. As one of the biggest statistics to come out of the entire survey was that 40% of people said that the cost of implementing security software was the biggest barrier, followed by the understanding of the benefits that it can actually bring you. Now, at Charity Digital, many of you will probably know that we have the Charity Digital Exchange Program, which offers donated and discount licenses from a number of security software vendors. We have partnerships with Norton, Bitdefender, and Avast Business. The Norton and Bitdefender products are basic antivirus and will protect your endpoint with antivirus perfectly fine. We do have some more advanced solutions available through our partnership with Avast, things like patch management. And I'm going to ask Becca to give you a little bit more information, if she can, about the importance of patching within cybersecurity.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's interesting that the barrier quite often is cost, because there are quite a lot of things that you can do without actually costing you any money at all. So when we're finding that quite a high number of, for example, ransomware attacks have occurred because cyber criminals use what we call vulnerabilities in systems. So that's when they found a way in using some software. So it could be either for your any kind of device that you have that logs into the internet. It could be your VPN, it could be your laptop, it could be your phone, it could be a smart can't get my words out. But anyway, the reason why your phone and your laptop, etc., you get these regular updates from your provider is because they have identified a vulnerability. And quite often it's not just about performance changes that they have included in their patches. It's also patching up those vulnerabilities. So it's really important to make sure that you're making that all your devices are patched and kept up to date. Now, in the NCSC, we offer a free service. It's called Early Warning, and it's all available on our website. And if you sign into that, it will alert you of any vulnerabilities that it sees on your system, on your network, and that includes any signs that there might be something dodgy going on your in your system, and it will send you an alert. Usually it's nice and quiet, you don't hear anything from them, and that's a really good sign. But if you do get an alert from them, then there's a sign that there's something that needs to be patched or something like that. I think also there's other software that we don't think of as being cybersecurity software. So, for example, with backups, using the cloud to make sure that any of your important information is backed up and secured. So that could be sensitive information or financial information, sensitive information on individuals. That's the sort of thing that you want to keep safe. So using a cloud keeps it separate from your network, which means that it would be much more secure if you were a victim of a cyber attack. And then, of course, there's things like switching on your multi-factor authentication where you can, and making sure that people are using strong passwords. So potentially even password managers could be seen as cybersecurity software tools. And there's plenty of others I'm sure that I've missed out as well. I'm just trying to think of more.
I think that was a really good explanation. Thanks, Becca. Now, one statistic that isn't actually on this slide is that 11% of people have said one of the barriers is product trust. How does an organization go about assessing what product would be right for them?
Oh, that's quite a tough question, because I don't normally look into products as part of the NCSC. So we don't have like particular brands or organisations that we would specifically recommend. So yeah, I'm not really sure actually how to answer that one.
That's perfectly fine.
Have you got some thoughts on it though, Stuart? Because I know that you work more closely with these with the brands.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of hangovers from old perceived ideas about the antivirus companies, the big software houses that provide this software, with things like with certain organizations that give away free home use antivirus software, but in return they were also harvesting people's data. Now they weren't harvesting it in any way that anyone was identifiable, but that does break down that barrier slightly. I would say with something like that, if you're getting something free on the internet, you're actually paying for it somehow. At the end of the day, that's not the product, you're the product there. But that's what I would say to that. I think there is a balance of what you need to cover, and the again, I'm going to say we have products here that cover different budgets, and different usage types. So I would say do your research, find out what your organization actually needs and what they want to achieve, and then reach out to the organizations that you're looking at using for your coverage to see how they would fit in with you and work with you.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And there's that cost versus risk as well, which is going to be very different with each organisation, isn't it? It might be there might be this super secure software, the super secure cloud backups or whatever, but you have to pay like £150 a month, and you're you're a micro organisation. Is that going to be worthy use of your money when there could be another product that may not be quite as secure but is far more affordable? It's still going to be secure enough, so it's still reducing your risk better than not doing anything at all, but far more affordable for you as an organization.
I think there's also something to be said for having someone within your organization that maybe, even if it is a secondary part of their role, is a little bit more trained on these things. I know a lot of organizations could save an awful lot of money by managing their service themselves. I know that there is a barrier there with maybe training and education to actually being able to do that, but on average a self-managed antivirus license is 95% cheaper than having a managed service provider. However, if you don't have that expertise in-house, then you might want to go down that route so that you have that contact there, someone at the end of the phone, at the end of email, at the end of chat, that if you see something that you don't feel is right, that you can contact and be like, help, that's kind of what we pay you for.
Yeah, that links in quite closely to Barry's comment on here, saying it's not always, the cost isn't always in the software, it's in the cost of the person responsible for it. So if you've given that to someone who's not got the skills, that could cost you more than if you just went to a managed service provider and paid them longer term. It's going to make you more secure, I guess.
Just having a look to see if we've got any more questions on this one. So Gareth in the Q&A has asked, is there a particular password manager that you would recommend? I'm happy to answer that one. There are lots of good password managers out there and available. A lot of the time they can be included with other security software with no extra charge, as in with Avast. We use Okta as an organization, and there is an offer available for charities for Okta via Charity Digital Exchange. There are also some free options out there that you can find by Googling. I, on a personal level, quite like the password manager that is wrapped up within the Google suite of programs, which has is free to use on a personal level, has multi-factor authentication with biometrics and things like that. So there are many options from free to paid services.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, lots of options out there.
Do you want me to ask any more questions, or you got a few more slides to go through, and then we can do the questions after this?
I think we only have one more slide left.
Perfect.
And that is our further resources slide, which includes some links. You'll find there the links to some of the products that we've mentioned today, the tools from the NCSC, and the top one I think is a link to some more information about the survey. We are going to have more in-depth looks of the findings at a later date, so keep an eye out on our other content with that. And yeah, I think we're ready to open it up for the full Q&A, Liz.
Great. Okay, let's get started then. Are we ready? We've got Hannah that has asked, how best can we protect our supported databases such as Razor's Edge and Salesforce?
Okay.
So shall I give that to you, Becca?
I can certainly start with some of our guidance, and then whether or not there are any particular products that can help. That I can't help with that side of things. But I would say that if you've got any information that you want to keep secure, if you can password protect it at any point, then make sure that it's password protected. Making sure that people are using passwords that are separate to their login passwords that they use into the system. That will just mean that if, for whatever reason, someone has managed to get in via a brute force password attack, then they won't then also be able to go in and log in and access that. Also multi-factor authentication. So these just ways of making it more difficult to get into the system. So if you, from that perspective, that's protecting it from any kind of data sharing. Mm-hmm. But then on the other side, also making sure that you're backing up your important data, backing it up to a system that is separate to your main system. So it could be using cloud, or it could be downloading it onto a server that's separate to your network that gets disconnected when you finish the backup. But yeah, passwords and backups, I would say, are the most important thing. And of course, patching, making sure that any software that you are using for it is being patched as soon as possible. So having some kind of patching policy within your organization. If there are any products that can be used to help, then
to be honest, I can't think of any products that would be specific for that type of security. Well, one thing I'd like to reinforce with what Becca said is things like Salesforce, they have their own security settings. Make sure that they are set up correctly for your organization, with things like the multi-factor authentication and things like that. Your usual cybersecurity on your servers and things like that should be enough at the very base level. It is that main threat there for you is someone discovering a password and being able to log into one of your accounts.
Sure. Okay, thank you. We have a question about hybrid working now. How can we ensure the devices of our teams are protected as well, especially if they're using their personal devices?
I'd like to say most of the products that we mentioned today are managed cloud-based now. So if you do have your security products on there, you're able to monitor that they're switched on. You would be able to set them so that an end user wouldn't be able to switch them off. For the more complex ones, like Avast, that you can add things like patch management onto. You can set when the device is updated, when it's not. Roll patches back. So it's one of those things. You just need to make sure that protection is still in place if it's applied. Yeah.
Becca, did you have anything else on that, or shall I move on?
Yes. So when you're working remotely, if people are, then we have just updated our bring your own device policy as well. I was just trying to find a link to it, but I can't quite find it fast enough. But
we can put the link on in the resources afterwards. That's fine.
Fab, lovely. One thing I would say is to make sure that if you have the people that are using their own devices, that they don't have admin access through their own devices. So if you have you have to make sure that the devices that are accessing via the admin route are as secure as possible. So you need to have that control over whether they've been patched and that sort of thing. So if that is a possibility, that they can anyone with admin access can use a device that's a managed device, that's super. And if that's not a possibility, just making sure that you're following all the rest of our guidance on multi-factor authentication, especially.
Yeah, especially. And this sort of follows on. Any advice or best practice on how we can keep supported data safe while sharing internally amongst colleagues?
Okay, so is this like emailing each other with attachments? Or
I guess it could be. I mean, we all do it, don't we? We email with attachments between colleagues. Yeah. I guess we're looking about what, password protection again in a separate email, or
whether you're using something like SharePoint, trying to share a link into SharePoint rather than downloading it as an attachment. I think that's a really important way of securing it, but also making sure that everyone's aware of what to look out for with phishing emails as well. So making sure that you've got that education throughout your organisation. So I think we were talking about training earlier, and I think it's great to make sure that you're trained yourself. But if you can share things like our top tips for staff e-learning across your organisation, then you'll be a whole lot safer across the whole organisation. I think it comes back to that, it only takes one little crack for them to be able to get in. If you're sharing stuff between your organisation, between people in your charity, then you have to make sure that everyone is on the same page in terms of education there.
Yeah, were you going to say something with that, Stu?
I don't have anything to add to that one.
That's fine. Thank you, Becca. Moving on to a question from David. The Northwest Cyber Resilience Centre is currently offering their core membership training, consultancy and alerts free for 12 months. Does anyone know if this has been rolled out nationally?
Oh, I don't know whether it is being rolled out nationally at all, I'm afraid. I had no awareness of it, but I'm going to have a look into it though.
Yeah, it's a good thing to look into, isn't it? Maybe we can follow up on that.
Yeah, in fact, this is probably a good point for me to copy and paste. So we have our small organisations newsletter. And if you click on that link that I've just sent, you can subscribe so that you can get a monthly update, anything that any small organisation, business or charity might need to know security-wise. Okay. So if we've changed our guidance, or we've got a new product that's available, or there's just an interesting topic that we think is important in the news, then to go through that way. Unfortunately, fantastic. I don't know about these particular alerts.
Okay, great. I'm going to move on. Are there any tips for protecting our donation payments process, which I imagine could be a target by cyber attacks? So donation payment processes.
Yeah, okay. I think other than the making sure that you're using the multi-factor authentication, passwords, etc., understanding what you would do if you recognised any suspicious activity around your donations payments, how you can report to action fraud, perhaps. You're just making sure that you're prepared in case anything does happen. I can't think of anything else that I would want to add specifically about the donations payments process. But Stuart, do you have anything else to add about?
I don't think there's quite enough information within the question there, because it would very much depend on how you take those payments, whether you do it yourself on your own website or your website, you're pointing off onto a third party that processes that for you. So again, apart from using the security features within the software that you're utilizing, like the two-factor authentication and things like that.
Yeah. Okay, good point. Gareth is asking, I'm really keen to gain further expertise and training within the cybersecurity beyond the stuff and that you provide. Is there an established route to this that you're aware of? So beyond what the National Cybersecurity is providing?
There are a number of universities that are providing training. I think, well, first step could be to go to Open University. They have a lot of lots of free training on there that could maybe give you a taster. And I know that there are there are apprenticeships. So it would mean leaving your charity that I'm aware of. But I'm trying to think if there are any, I could link into some of the development work that we've done, but there are a number of universities and colleges that we've worked with to develop their cybersecurity courses. There is no one single route. I think it depends on what part of cybersecurity you're interested in, because there's the technical side, there's also the psychological side, and there's a lot on both sides, that socio-technical security side of it as well. So maybe have a think about which direction that you would like to take your training, and then maybe go from there.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
okay.
I'd like to add something to this.
Go for it.
As someone that has need to Google cybersecurity and look up articles on cybersecurity, I am often targeted with ads for training courses. a lot of times that these ads are not as genuine as you would expect them to be. So I want to say is do your own research on courses that are right for you, rather than flicking through your Instagram and you get that ad come up that promises you £75,000 per annum to become a cybersec with their exclusive training, and they're going to get you a job at the end of it.
I think we'll all go for that one.
Well, yeah, exactly. But again, because scammers or people that want what's in your wallet or your organization's wallet see that people are looking to be qualified in this area, they are targeting people that want to target them. So do your own research. Your local further education college, local night school, things like that often have a good course that will take you further than sort of some online training.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Yeah, that's a really good point. And we have time for one more question, which is great because we've only got one more question left. Bobby is asking, what actions should you take when working with freelancers? Some will need access to important information and even admin level access to some things.
I think this is a really good question. And I've been thinking about how to answer this. I think that it should be the same approach as with anyone in your organization. You only give them the access that they need when they need it. So if they don't need admin level access, and that goes for anyone in the organization, you don't give it to them. And also when they stop needing it, making sure that you're always checking who has that admin access, removing the accounts that no longer need it. Because if one of those accounts manage to get hacked, then that will mean that there's a whole lot more that those criminals can access in your system. So it's just having that due diligence, constantly checking to make sure that it's only the people who need access that have access to, especially things like important information or admin rights.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. It's worth just checking the chat because Douglas has put an interesting link in there about qualifications for a career in cybersecurity. So for those people that are interested in that as well, that's it, folks. It was good, wasn't it? That was really good discussion. Thank you so much. I just thank you both for coming on. It was sort of jam-packed of information in there and lots of resources. So thank you, Stu. Thank you, Becca, for delivering this fantastic session that we've had today. We have got another webinar coming up on the 4th of November at 4 o'clock on a hybrid working, collaboration, security and integration. And we've got another free online event at Charities Against Hate on the 16th of November. So if you haven't signed up for that, then you can go and just look for the details and sign up on our website. So thank you everyone for joining us. We're going to say goodbye now, and we hope to see you all very, very soon.